Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast, quarantine edition, episode, whatever. I've already lost count. It's been more than one. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone'scriticpodcast.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. Subscribe, like us, all that fun stuff. Patreon at patreon.com/ihatecritics. And then our merch TeePublic page, ihatecritics.net. There's a link up there in the right-hand corner. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. I don't know. I'm maybe just making things up at this point. Subscribe there, rate, review the show. We'll read your review on the air. We're on Alexa, YouTube as well. If you listen on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and that bell for notification when a new episode drops. And comment on the show and share it with all your friends. This week, we've got, let's start with the new movie that I guess is a good one. The Wretched. I don't know. They never say it in the movie.
I'm pretty sure it's Wretched, but I'm not, honestly, I couldn't tell you for sure whether or not that's how it's pronounced. Because it's not, the title of the movie is never said in the movie. Not that they're required to. It's just weird, and I can't really figure out how that title actually relates to the movie. I mean, I know what the word wretched means. I'm aware of it. I looked it up and put it in the review I wrote of The Wretched, and it means like pitiable. And I don't necessarily pity anybody, even the monster or the victims in this movie. So again, it's kind of a strange thing. I guess the character is miserable, like this wretched thing, but this movie confused the hell out of me, man. The idea here is that this kid goes to live with his dad in a seaside place. There is this monster that has arrived there at the exact same time, and this particular monster, is it a witch? I'm not sure. She takes over the body of a woman and then sets about enchanting the woman's husband to forget that he has a child, while she takes the child and eats the child or stores it in a tree to eat later. It's weird, and I don't understand what this movie was going for. There's a lot of homage to other horror movies, or other movies in general. Like there's a whole Rear Window thing, just because I guess the directors saw Rear Window and like, hey, we got a kid wearing a cast, we'll do Rear Window for a little bit. I really did not care for this movie, to the point where I've written 2 articles about it, a full-length review, and I wrote about some of their one of their particular directing choices that I felt was indicative of how this movie is rather sloppy in terms of its visual style, in terms of how it signifies things specifically, and doesn't use them in any way. Like you calling attention to something that doesn't matter. It does that a couple of times. Once with this corkscrew that I wrote about, which is a whole one of those deep dive weird things that I do on this type of stuff. But there's also this thing about check the basement. Well, the basement has nothing to do with anything. It's a red herring and not a very good one. I don't like this movie. I really don't. And it's not terribly made. It's not terribly acted. But again, you have also the lead actor in this movie is not, or the lead character. The actor's fine. I don't want to rip the actor at all. He did fine for what he's been given. But as a character, he's kind of a little dick. And I just I couldn't connect to him or care much about him just because I didn't like him. John Paul Howell is the lead character, Ben. And he's got this whole relationship going on with this girl that he develops who lives there and works at the same place where he and his dad work. And he's just a prick to her the entire time. And and they don't give him any kind of scene where they kind of redeem him or give him a reason to be a jerk. It doesn't work either way. I just didn't like this movie. I didn't enjoy it. It's not terrible. It's too boring to be all that memorable. Oh, and the other thing, there's this mask. There's this, like, not a mask, but like a skull that is seen prominently in the marketing of this movie. That skull is used one time and it has no meaning whatsoever in this movie. And I don't know why they made that the center of the ad campaign. It is bizarre to me because she wears it for like one scene, this murderous thing. And I mean, I don't even. I'm trying to understand the what this monster wanted, because we see the monster at the beginning, and we get a sense of what it does, kind of for opening scene. This babysitter arrives. She's going to sit for a kid. She goes inside the house. The house is eerily quiet. She hears something in the basement. She goes downstairs. She discovers this monstrous thing, I guess, inside the body of the woman who is the mother who she was coming to sit for. And the mother is eating it naked and eating a child, the child she was there to sit for. And then the babysitter screams and tries to run away, and she can't get out. And I assume that the monster kills her. But then later, if this monster character can kill that babysitter, then why does she fuck around not killing Ben and his girlfriend when they're fucking around with her? She just kill him. Or she has this talent where she can start whispering in somebody's ear and take control of them and make them forget the things. Or either she can control them, which she controls a police officer and an EMT for reasons. Then she can control them, and she can control the husband that she's controlling, but then she just lets Ben run off and do anything and potentially screw up her whole scheme. Why? Just enchant him or kill him. That's what your capabilities are. Fucking stupid.
Well, she controlled him for a half a second, and he was able to overpower it because he forgot about his brother. And then the monster clearly knew that we knew who the brother and this other little sister of his girlfriend were, so she didn't kill them. She just put them off to the side so we could have a final scene.
she's got a little pantry in her underground tree.
But just conveniently the characters we know about. So so literally everybody we care about is let go. And yeah, I mean, I read the corkscrew thing, and I mean, it was good writing. It was funny. But it is indicative of the whole movie because it's just a lot of sloppy is the right word. I think that's what you called it in the review. It's sloppy writing, sloppy directing. I mean, I don't mind them doing that corkscrew thing if they're just throwing you off, but it's just not good on top of that. You know, it is weird. I mean, they literally, it's like not even 2 seconds, but they get to a complete focus of nothing but the corkscrew. It would have been a good poster for the movie, quite frankly. And then it never comes into play. I mean, they just open up a bottle of wine with it, and that's it.
Yeah.
But it's just it's kind of boring. It doesn't know what it wants to be. There's no real stakes because everybody gets away scot-free that you know about. Anybody who doesn't get away, you'd have no access to. You don't know who they are, so you care. It's scary, I guess, especially if you don't go to movies a lot, but you'd have no real care about those characters because you've never seen them before. You see them eating a baby or whatever that you don't know.
Right.
So it's kind of boring. The acting's fine, like you said, but it really is sloppy filmmaking. It's not that much fun to watch, and kind of disappointed with as good as IFC Midnight has been lately.
Absolutely, yeah. The when you've got the movies that we saw recently from them, and obviously that this one, IFC Midnight is quite good at what they do, and this one's just not up to that standard.
No, it wore me out, and I was ready for bed. My wife was like, I want to watch something else, and I was like, I'm tired. I got a podcast in the morning. And so we started watching this other movie on Netflix, and we ended up turning it off because neither one of us could stay off our phone. I don't know what it was called, but it was ranked number 1 for the week. And it's not that important because I turned it off and I turned on the Ronda Rousey Through My Father's Eyes documentary. And 2 things. 1, because Ronda Rousey is interesting, it's watchable.
Okay.
2, it stops after the first Holly Holm fight, so it leaves you wondering like if she's going to get redemption. But it's not. It was made in 2019, so it's not old enough to. I mean, it knows she got her ass kicked again. So, but the most important part of the whole thing is this director, Gary Stretch. he is featured prominently throughout this movie and has nothing to do with it. You know, documentaries are always, you're asking the person a question and they're answering the question, but you never see the person on screen. You always see the person answering the question on screen. This kept cutting back and forth to him, and he had some goofy outfit on every time. Like one time it's a tank top, like almost a spaghetti strap tank top. Another, I mean, he just looks like a total douchebag. He will not keep himself off of the screen, and he has nothing to do with this movie. In fact, the way the movie ends is with him walking off into the sunset, not Ronda Rousey. What? You need to watch this movie just for this guy. It is so amazing. I mean, after a while, it's just hilarious. I don't understand why he's in this thing as much as he is.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, he's such a character, and it's so unintentional that it ended up being a lot of fun. So I highly recommend Ronda Rousey Through My Father's Eyes, which even the father's eyes part, you know, he dies when she's 8 and they talk about it, but they kind of let it go. I guess she dedicates a couple of wins to him, but it's him trying to make, I mean, it's so pretentious, but not good pretentious. It's really, really, I mean, if you like to laugh at things that don't mean to be laughed at, this is a movie
that sounds
for
amazing.
you.
I love that. That's one of my favorite things in the world.
So when this is done, turn that on and you're gonna have a blast. All right, and then you saw this movie called Vanilla.
Vanilla, yes. Vanilla is a strange sort of movie. Will Dennis is the director here, and the writer and the star of Vanilla, as a New York guy who he wants to start his own app, which, you know, typical. That's kind of a modern movie sort of job to have. His app is to sell ice cream delivery style. You can just hit the app and ice cream would be delivered to you. Anyway, not important. He's trying to sell this giant van that he has, and he happens upon this woman who wants to buy it. She works for a pizza shop, and they want to buy it and use it as a vehicle to sell pizza. She ends up getting her pizza place shut down. She wants to get rid of the van, get it back to this guy. He refuses to take it, but he has a solution, in that he knows somebody else who would like to buy the van, but they're in New Orleans. So she suggests that they go on a road trip together, and they treat it sort of as a first date, this road trip. And along the way, there are typical romantic complications, things that get in the way of them kind of having a good time and getting to know each other better and become a couple. It's a sweet movie with lots of really romantic elements. There's some very strong character stuff. The female lead is really strong. I really enjoyed her work in this. I'm struggling to remember her name, obviously, now, because that's just how I do this. Just how my brain works.
How the podcast works,
names.
really.
But she's wonderful, and she really, you know, captures your attention and your care. You're interested in her as a person, and she kind of does overwhelm him a little. He's a little bit more bland than Kelsey Bauman is her name. He's a little bland. She's a little bit more interesting than him, but that kind of plays out sort of to him becoming a better person. He's got to develop throughout the story, whereas she kind of enters the story as this fully formed human being who he's got to kind of rise up to, which is, again, part of the arc of the romance, which I appreciate. I got to talk a little bit about the ending, and I'm going to do my best not to spoil anything, because I do want people to perhaps watch this, but there's something about her that she's hiding throughout this movie, and she's forced to reveal it eventually. And what it does, it's a very large complication in their relationship. And by the end of the movie, it comes back around to her secret, and she's decided that he is not mature enough or caring enough to really honestly deal with the thing that she's kind of presented him with in this secret that she has. So she breaks up with him. He goes back to his apartment, and something happens that I found really, really creepy and unnecessary. And you can see the movie for yourself. It doesn't ruin the movie for me, because, like I said, so much of this movie is so good because there's such a good romantic chemistry going on, and there's such a nice arc of him becoming a more well-rounded human being via her. So that's a good enough thing, and she's good enough for me to like this movie enough to say I like this movie. But at the same time, this ending is just it strikes a tone where it's supposed to be, I don't want to say inspirational, but it's like he feels okay about her, and she's showing herself to be more mature and fully formed than he is. So there's supposed to be an element there of pathos, I guess, but it does not work for me because the elements involved have this sort of icky, creepy connotation that the movie really fails at. I'm going to write an article about it probably, so for anybody who wants to know about it there, you can read it there.
I like the poster. It looks like an ice cream sundae with a sex toy on top.
Yes, that is accurate.
I mean, it sounds interesting. So is it eye rolling at the end, or is it just not consistent?
No, it's just it's cringy. It's cringy because you look at what happens and you just kind of like, ugh, don't do that.
Yeah, but sometimes, I mean, Chasing Amy has a cringy ending, but it works.
I don't know. Do you want to see this movie? Because I can give you the ending and then we can put it at the end.
Not really.
If you want to see it, though, we can hold off.
No, I mean, maybe if you say what it is, I might end up seeing it.
All right. So right here, you're going to take this part and put it at the end? Or do you want to wait till after we do a flick chart?
Let's do it after flick chart. That way I don't have to edit anything.
Fair enough.
All right. Anything else before we move on to Dark Side of the Ring?
No, that's pretty much it. I do recommend Vanilla. It's available for online rental now, and yeah.
All right. Dark Side of the Ring, the Dr. D story. David Schultz.
Dr. D, David Schultz, was supposed to be, was at one time going to be one of the biggest draws in WWE. Right before WrestleMania happened, he was all set to have this big push to be the guy that Hulk Hogan had to overcome in order to, get that first WrestleMania. He was going to be one of the first big opponents for him after he beat the Iron Sheik. He's this sort of forgotten part of professional wrestling history because, not forgotten because he's remembered for one thing, but in terms of being a wrestler and in terms of being his in-ring stuff, that all completely seemingly came to an end via this one incident. So in 1983, I believe it was, he was working for WWE. He was building up his rivalry with Hogan. He'd just been brought up to New York to be Hogan's opponent. And this guy, John Stossel of ABC, starts building this story about professional wrestling. He's basically decided that wrestling is lying to people in convincing them that what happens in professional wrestling is real. He acknowledges the fact that only about a third of people recognize that or believe that wrestling is not scripted or doesn't have an outcome. So about 2/3 of the audience is fully aware of what's going on, even in 1983. Nevertheless, he's got a bug up his ass about professional wrestling. So he sets out to do this story. He finds a professional wrestler who's willing to sit down with him and actually run him through the ring and show him how everything is done, and that's going to be a big part of his story. But he wants to talk to WWE and have them kind of give their side. And in doing so, he arrives at Madison Square Garden one night, and he talks to Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon puts him in front of a couple of wrestlers. And according to the legend, or at least according to Dave Schultz, rather, he says that Vince McMahon told him to go talk to John Stossel and stay in character as Dr. D. So, be intimidating and be scary and be who you are as a character. And he does that. And John Stossel asks him the question, is wrestling fake? And Schultz just whacked him hard as he could right along the side of the head and said, is that real enough for you? And Stossel was left injured to the point where he sued the WWF. And Dr. D's career was pretty much over. It didn't end right away because he he thought he was going to be able to come out of this and they were going to turn it into something. And McMahon thought maybe if we, hide him away for a little bit and let this cool off, we can bring him back and do business. But then the lawsuit happened, and that really began to change everything, where McMahon basically hung Dave Schultz out to dry. That's the story that is told in this episode, and it is exceptionally told because Dave Schultz is an incredible character. You are drawn to him, even as he is kind of this weird, scary, rednecky kind of dude. He has so much charisma and is so interesting that he takes this thing that's seemingly this one little tiny incident 37 years ago, and it becomes this it becomes a much bigger, more important thing than the previous two episodes that have been about straight up fucking murder.
Yeah. I think it comes down to the directors are wrestling fans, and they know how to tell the story better. You have the character of, David Schultz, who was such a great character, but then you throw in, John Stossel's a perfect person to not like. You got James Cornette, who's entertaining in and of himself. Then Eddie Mansfield is a total piece of shit. And you have all these different things, not to mention Hulk Hogan's featured prominently throughout it as well. He's not in it. But you have all these things going for you. It is kind of a heartbreaking story, and I believe that Vince McMahon. I was going to say Jim McMahon. I believe Vince McMahon told him to do it in character, because later on they show the Undertaker in character with the governor of New Jersey, redoing the, saying it's not a licensed sport, it's entertainment, and you got the Undertaker standing there in character next to the governor of New Jersey. But it was just entertaining, and it was, it helps that, he went and made a good life for himself, being a bounty hunter, and that in and of itself was entertaining. You see that they sent him to Japan to basically reenact what happened to him with the John Stossel slapping a reporter thing. And I think that was almost a final nail in the coffin, because it just seemed like he got this reputation of not being a good person, and that what makes it the lawsuit, which even then John Stossel said magically the pain went away once he won the lawsuit. And he wasn't, he was kind of a dick about it, but at the same time I believe him. He was probably holding on to something, and he just was bitter about it up until he won, and then it just kind of magically fizzled away.
Yeah.
But then Hulk Hogan does the same thing to another reporter. Worse, the guy passes out and cuts his head open.
The Richard Belzer incident, yeah.
Yeah, and Jim Cornette makes a comment of Hulk Hogan could have shot him in the head and he wouldn't have been fired. So, and then if you listen to Cornette's podcast, he says, there's no way, what was that guy's name again, Belzer?
Richard Belzer, yeah.
Belzer. He goes, there's no way he wasn't on cocaine. For him to pass out that fast, your heart rate would have had to be, sped up. And then that's why it happened that way. So he was definitely on something that made his heart rate go up, and it was the mid-'80s. So, but it was just entertaining, and I think these guys are better at wrestling stories because you don't have the WWE interfering and changing history to make them look good. So they do a good job of the wrestling part. When they have to go into the real life crime stuff, that's not where they're best at, and if you don't have the right characters to make that work, then I don't know. So I'm really still hopeful for the Owen Hart episode, because I want that to be good, and Martha's involved with it, and that's what I'm most excited about. But yeah, this one was a really entertaining watch, and definitely made me happy we were still doing this. Because after the last 2 weeks, if this had sucked, we may have turned it off.
Right? Yeah, the last 2 weeks has been a tough sit, but this was so entertaining. And you're right about Cornette. As much as I have many, many issues with Jim Cornette as a human being, he is damn entertaining on these episodes. Like, he is the best thing about this. Just so much insight, so much cutting through the bullshit. He's absolutely perfect for this.
Well, and there's something like when wrestlers never came out of character, I don't think Cornette ever comes out of character. So we never really know what the human being, even on his podcast, he's being, this amplified person. You never get to see him, turned off. So, and that's something that's kind of what this particular episode is about, is in character versus out of character and kayfabe and all that crap. And I don't know. Part of me appreciates that the more and more I start to listen to his podcast. Anyway, let's move on to our classic.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed classic.
David Cronenberg's Videodrome.
Videodrome. This is a very, very unique movie. Videodrome stars James Woods as Max Wren. Max is a guy who runs a TV station in Canada, Channel 83. He bakes his bones by finding and playing the most violent and sexual programming that he can find, taking it to the most extreme that he can to try and draw ratings and get attention. He uncovers this show using a pirate satellite called Videodrome, and Videodrome appears to be the perfect show for what Max does, because it is just literally just an hour of somebody being tortured and sexually violated, and that's it. There's no characters, there's no plot, there's no production cost. It's just an hour of torture. This is just perfectly what Max wants for his station. But Videodrome is a little bit unusual because he doesn't know where it came from at first, and even as he uncovers where it came from, he doesn't. He's coming to realize slowly, and his people are telling him, Videodrome isn't a show. It's what is Videodrome? It's that becomes the question of the movie.
That should be the tagline of the movie.
This is the whole question is, what is Videodrome in the end? And wow. This is David Cronenberg, so there's a whole lot of body horror, and boy, this is some unique body horror. At one point, Woods has become very, very paranoid that the people behind Videodrome are coming for him. He's sitting on his couch watching Videodrome, and he's got a gun in his hand, and suddenly this thing opens. His own body just begins to open up, and for some reason he takes the gun in his hand and he starts poking at it, and then sticks the gun inside of himself, and then the gun becomes sealed inside his gut. Yeah. It is weird and shocking, and you're just kind of staring at it, and just you can't really make much sense. And then the gun is gone. The gun comes back, obviously, later on. A tip for the directors of the Wretched: if you're gonna show a gun earlier, it's got to be used later, and they do that here in a very unique way. How spoiler heavy do you want to be on this?
I mean, it's been around a long time, so I think
fair
we
enough.
can be.
Let's go. Basically, for me, I think this is Cronenberg's commentary on American violence and the way it's exported around the world. And even in 1983, this was a thing, and it's obviously even more of a thing today, and over the years since then. But basically, this is about obviously literally internalizing violence, because it literally takes the gun inside of himself, and then later the gun becomes a part of his hand, like it fuses around his hand as if it's another a part of his being, and he's going to use it as a tool of the creators of Videodrome. He becomes a killer. The violence of Videodrome internalizes so deeply within him that he becomes a killer on behalf of Videodrome, and has to be deprogrammed essentially by the daughter of Marshall McLuhan to then to embrace the new flesh.
Yeah, it's weird because the first Cronenberg movie we watched was a lot of fun. This one, it's too violent to be fun, but it's definitely fascinating. And I shouldn't say this. The violence is too sexual, and it's hard to watch kind of rape stuff be fun. That's what I'm trying to say. But it is fascinating to watch, and the gore effects and just the whole stomach stuff alone. At one point, it becomes a VCR sort of. It kind of reminds me of They Live in the fact that it's definitely ahead of its time, although maybe the times just haven't changed. There's definitely a commentary on the media as well, because when you watch this thing, you get a tumor in your head and it affects you and it ultimately kills you. And you can think like Fox News. You watch that and you get a tumor in your head and it affects the way you view other things. And I think it's saying a lot of different things, and it's really smart and really well done. And like They Live, I think it's still relevant today. And I don't know, I'm just surprised it took me this long to get to it.
It seems like something that would be right up our alley, in terms of the things that we've enjoyed on this show. There are elements of this reminding me a lot of Night of the Virgin, which is another movie that uses horrific body horror to make its point. Debbie Harry's in this movie. She plays his love interest, and I was really liking the sort of confrontational way that she approaches BDSM and sexuality. She's introduced as a character who is a radio show host in Canada. She's brought onto this talk show to sit next to Max Red and sort of castigate him for his use of sex and violence. And then her reality is that she really loves sex and violence in private. She just doesn't like it in public necessarily. At least that's how she's posited on the talk show. But when she confronts James Woods and they go out, she goes out with him and she comes to his house and to have sex with him, she suddenly reveals that she really likes violent sexuality. She watches Videodrome with him and she's super turned on by it. And initially he's kind of like, what do you do? What's happened? Well, hang on, wait a minute. Like the whole thing that he's been selling to the world via his TV station is now confronting him very directly. Like, she likes to be cut. She shows off, like, she's not even trying to hide these cuts she has on her shoulder where a lover has in the past like sliced her with a weapon of some sort, and that's what she's into. And he almost can't handle it. But he's also, of course, he's affected by Videodrome, and he does try his best to sort of get into it. And her then wanting to be on Videodrome and traveling to where Videodrome is so she can be part of it becomes a part of the story.
Yeah, it's just really well done. Really well, very smart, and like the being confronted by kind of your. I mean, I'll go back to the media thing. It's like a celebrity who gets caught doing something you don't like, someone you like a lot, and all of a sudden they do something stupid online, and you gotta confront yourself with whether you like the celebrity or not anymore. Or I've told the story before with we were having a family debate, over like Easter or something like that about police shooting black people or something that had happened, and my dad was on one side and then my father-in-law was on the same side as my dad, but my dad wasn't trying to come at it from a racist point of view. He was coming at it from he doesn't like people disobeying the cops. Well, my father-in-law just flat out goes, well, I just don't like black people. And now my dad now has to go like, well, this guy's on my side. So now I'm confronted with my beliefs of, and it's just kind of that part reminded me of, that story. And just a really smart movie. And it's definitely a movie I think I'm going to watch again and again, kind of like They Live and other movies from that era. It's amazing that it's taken me this long to get to it, and now I think it's going to become part of my repeat viewing.
That's cool. That's good to hear. Yeah, we've had that with Cronenberg so far. The experience of Cronenberg movies has been really strong.
And were you not? I mean, I know we never. I'm kind of neither here nor there on the fly. I don't think you really liked it. Is that kind of your other than the newer stuff like History of Violence, or did you kind of avoid Cronenberg early on too? Is that?
It's one of those things where his stuff for me as a younger person was so terrifying and daunting that I wasn't sure I wanted to expose myself to it. A lot of things is like ever since Night of the Virgin and Martyrs, I've kind of been confronted by that, and and I'm suddenly like, okay, let's go there. What's next?
Yeah, and based on our age, he does predate us. And then when you go back and rewatch movies, I mean, I'm instantly going back to the 70s. You know, that's in the 60s, and you probably went all over the place. But the 80s, you just kind of, we were alive, but we were, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just avoided a lot of movies from that era. But now it's going to be kind of fun to spend the next couple of years revisiting or visiting Cronenberg for the first time in some of these movies.
He really was an actual student in college of Marshall McLuhan, and that's who obviously influenced the Professor Oblivion, Barry Oblivion, I think his name is, which is a great name. A man who refuses to appear on television unless he's on television. Which try to wrap your mind around that for a moment.
It's just such a smart movie. It's one of those two that you start talking about it, you just love it that much more.
Yeah, it's just things just sort of occur to you just how ingenious it is. I mean, some people might say that some of the metaphors that he's using here are very obvious about internalizing violence or the ways in which people can be inured towards violence by all the violence that they're confronted with in popular culture. And those are obvious metaphors, but they're extraordinarily well handled here. Right.
I agree completely. Yeah, my brother's been trying to get me to go back to Cronenberg since he was in college, and he's been talking about this and Scanners. And did he do Naked Lunch too, or is that someone else?
He did, yeah. Naked Lunch is his.
And I just never have, and now we have a reason to.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on Videodrome before we move on?
Just I hope you're joining us all. I hope you're joining us on the Cronenberg rewatch. Everybody listening to us, and feel free to share your own experience of Videodrome and Cronenberg on the Facebook page.
Yeah, and let us know which one we should go to next. I mean, we're not going to do it right away. We're going to kind of spread this out and milk it for a while. But whether it's Scanners or whatever it is, let us know, and we'll definitely give it a shot. 1990, Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah, Tales from the Dark Side is an anthology movie with 3 directors, 3 stories, a lot of movie stars in this. The overall director is a guy named John Harrison, but he's got stories here that feature Stephen King, screenplay by George Romero, Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes. And so the 3 stories are held together by this framing story about a character played by Debbie Harry, who's the star of this week's episode. She's seems to be just this regular everyday housewife until she arrives home, and sitting in the corner of her home, you see this very obvious witch's broom, and you're drawn in. Oh, she's a witch. And she in her pantry, she has a little boy, Timmy, played by Matthew Lawrence, chained up in her pantry, and she's left him with this book of horror stories called Tales from the Dark Side. And she's planning on cooking Timmy and eating him, which is another part. This is another tie into earlier in the episode, honestly. But he delays that her plans to eat him by telling her 3 different stories, beginning with Lot 249, which is an Arthur Conan Doyle story featuring Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi, and Christian Slater as the stars. And this, I believe, that might be the first Julianne Moore movie from 1990. Basically, Steve Buscemi is this guy who collects artifacts for her living. He's collected this artifact, a giant mummy's tomb, and inside is this mummy that has this curse, and he's going to use that curse to enact this mummy upon the people he doesn't like. That's how that's going to play out with him trying to take revenge on Julianne Moore and a guy named Robert Sedgwick, who plays her boyfriend. And Christian Slater is the brother of Julianne Moore's character, and also Buscemi's sort of roommate. Interesting story, well told. It's a very familiar story. It seems like something that we've seen before, but I can't really place where I've seen this story told before about a guy who can control an ancient mummy to act on his will. But interesting and well told and really cool. Like an episode of a TV series, really, which this was, right? This Dark
I believe. I don't know. I know Tales from the Crypt was. I'm sure this was somewhere.
So the second story is based off of a screenplay by, it's based off a short story by Stephen King and adapted by George Romero. The story goes that a black cat is slowly murdering the members of a very rich pharmaceutical family. William Hickey is the wheelchair-bound old man who has watched as his sister and her friend and his butler have been killed by this cat, or at least he believes they have been. It's, there's no real evidence of it, but it's the story that he's telling. To David Johansen, who plays a hitman named Halston, who the old man is hiring to kill this cat. Halston doesn't believe anything about this story. He's just kind of humoring the old guy as he's going on and telling this story about how this cat has killed every member of his family. The then goes that the cat scratches Johansson or Halston, and he's like, "Oh, you messed up my suit. That's it. I'm going to kill this cat. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take your money and I'm going to kill this cat." Well, what happens from there is that he and the cat have a pitched battle back and forth, and you're still kind of left throughout sort of wondering, is the cat really killing people? But the movie does, the story does eventually coalesce to tell you one way or the other in a very specific way with some really great gore, really solid, like scary looking shit that they do with this cat. That it's really rather impressive. None of these stories have a happy ending. That's should be pointed out, except for one, but I won't spoil that. It's really, this one particular thing is just very, this one particular piece of gore is so really super effective that it made me like this movie a whole hell of a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
The last.
I was just going to say, I didn't get a chance to watch it, and it bums me out because of the way I mentioned on the other podcast, but we're now recording in the mornings on Sunday because that's what my wife wants, and whatever she wants, we do. But because of that, I have less time to watch movies, and it sucks. This one sounds like it would have been right up my alley.
Yeah, and it's free on Crackle, so.
Goddamn Crackle. All right, go ahead.
Well, the final story is called Lover's Vow. And this one is not based on anybody you know, a story by anybody you know, but it stars James Remar as an artist who's struggling. He's about to lose his apartment. He's in bad shape. He goes to a bar one night and gets really drunk with a couple of guys. He leaves with the bartender, Jer, and while he's outside the bar, the bartender is murdered by a giant demon. Like, this demon just comes up and just cuts this guy's head off right in front of our main character. And then the demon walks up to him, and you think he's going to kill Preston, and then he offers Preston a deal. I will let you live, but you cannot tell anybody anything about me. You can tell nothing of any. You have to forget this ever happened. And so, okay, yes, of course, he takes the deal. He runs away, and as he's running away, he runs into this woman played by Rae Dawn Chong and pulls her aside and says, he's trying to hide her in case the demon is anywhere nearby. And they develop a relationship. They go back to his place. They have sex. They begin to fall in love. And he's then introduced back into the art world, and he becomes successful. And they have this long-term relationship. The demon will be coming back, however, at some point, and there's a big twist. And you can see it coming a mile away, but it's super, super effective. And again, these are three really well-told stories, and a fourth story, of course, being the framing device, which comes to a head at the end. And again, I won't spoil it, but it does play out in a really fun way.
That's cool. Usually the framing device is pointless.
Yeah, usually.
That's good. I wish I would have watched this one, but maybe I'll watch Crackle later today. We'll see.
I do recommend it. It's good, solid. There's some really good gore in this, some really clever stuff.
Did you watch Short Time? That's another movie from 1990 that came out this weekend.
I intended to. I didn't find the time for any of the other 1990 movies.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I got to watch the Michael Jordan thing. I forgot the name of it off the top of my head. The Last Dance. And I don't know. I want to watch other things, too. So next week, we've got the class of 1999, Death by Temptation and Longtime Companion. I'm not sure I'm going to get to any of those. But we will see if something jumps out at me. I'm going to try to as of now, I suppose things can always change. But at the moment, if nothing new comes out, I'm going to try to catch up on some old movies. Invisible Man. I already watched the Harley Quinn movie, and then The Way Back, and then we're going to make Gone Girl the classic to go along with the Ben Affleck theme. So
this is the first time that we've revisited a movie that we've done on the show before, I believe. So we actually talked about Gone Girl. Obviously that was like one of the first years of the show. It was a movie that we all loved and named the best movie of the year it came out. And I thought, it's time. I really want a reason to watch Gone Girl again and talk about it again. So we're going to see how time has carried this film.
Please don't make it more pedestrian. That would be terrible. Although, have you seen what Fincher's working on now?
No, what is he working on?
It's a movie about the making of Citizen Kane, which is interesting.
Okay, I did read that. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I anything he does is great, though. He's the best.
Right, and you throw, arguably the best movie of all time with the best director of all time. That's a interesting combination. I can't wait to see that. All right, flick chart. Let's see here. What do I got? I Heart Huckabees, Jeepers Creepers.
I Heart Huckabees. I love that movie.
Yeah. Love David O. Russell. Gangs of New York, Wedding Crashers.
Wedding Crashers, because I'd watch it, but I think Gangs of New York is a really good movie that people don't give enough credit to.
I must be one of those people. I'm going to Wedding Crashers. I don't know. Uncle Jeff put something out there, the actor that you despise, or that you think's the most overrated. I don't remember how he worded it, but everybody had, obvious answers, and I was like, Daniel Day-Lewis, and they were like, what? I just don't like the guy. Of all the actors, we did not think that name would pop up.
Too pretentious for you?
Yeah, I mean, and this is stupid that I'm using Malcolm McDowell's, his quote, because he's not a good actor. I mean, he did Clockwork Orange, and that's about it. But he said something about, it's if you have to be in the role 24/7 and you can't come out of it, that's not acting, that's just being. And I'm kind of that's kind of right on. And I don't know, I was never on all these sets, but if he was really making people pick him up and carry him around or address him as Mr. President and stuff like that, I mean, fuck that guy. Plus, he makes a lot of homework. Conspiracy theory, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Lock, Stock.
Yeah. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Cape Fear, 1991.
Crouching Tiger.
Mm-hmm. Holes, 2003. Saw 3, 2006.
Saw 3. But Holes is not bad, actually.
Right, but Saw 3 was my favorite of the sequels. Little Nicky, the Patriot.
The Patriot, yeah. I don't need to think about that.
Sherlock Holmes, Sunset Boulevard. Sherlock Holmes, 2009.
Sunset Boulevard. Although I kind of like Sherlock Holmes as well, even though I shouldn't.
Pitch Black, Remember the Titans.
Pitch Black all the way.
I hate it, but go ahead. That's fine.
No passion for Remember the Titans?
Not really. I barely remember it, oddly enough.
Insanely overrated. Just the most obvious and the obvious inspirational sports story. Nothing really new or different or interesting about it. And I love Denzel, but I thought it's the least interesting that Denzel Washington has been in a movie, if you ask me. Yeah,
I think Pitch Black's the only one of that series that I've seen, and I absolutely hated it. But I don't know if, I just didn't have the right context for it or what. Also, it's not my genre of choice, the sci-fi. But yeah, Remember the Titans is just kind of blah. Syriana, The Wrestler.
The Wrestler.
I agree. Girl Interrupted, Hancock.
Girl Interrupted. Hancock's not a good movie, but I have a soft spot for it for some reason.
Yeah. Weird Science or Backdraft.
Weird Science for me.
Yeah, I didn't go back and watch Backdraft. I'm sure it's not what I remember it as a kid. When I was a kid, that was a real movie. Now that I'm an adult, I'm sure that does not hold up. Atonement, Pinocchio, 1940.
Atonement. One of those movies, it's one of the rare movies that looks like homework, and then it turns out to be more watchable than you think it's going to be.
Joe Dirt, The Hateful Eight.
The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, that movie keeps improving for me.
Yeah. It is one of those that kind of gets better the more you think about it.
3 Men and a Baby, Get Shorty.
Get Shorty.
Pacific Rim, Role Models.
Role Models.
Yeah. Speed 2, Cruise Control, The Ring.
God damn it. The Ring.
Ring's not bad. It just ruins stuff. The Wrestler, Batman Begins.
The Wrestler.
That is the thing. The Wretched or Wretched or whatever. The stupid monster. It goes back to that Ring-looking monster that they've had in every movie since the Ring came out. That's another thing
that visually it does. Yeah, it is. She's definitely the Ring. Absolutely.
And it's not scary. It was halfway scary in the Ring, I guess, especially at the age I was. But The Grudge went and overdid it, and ever since then, it's never worked for me.
Yeah, it's like women who just just crawled out of a sewer. That's basically the aesthetic is women who just crawled out of a sewer naked.
The Rock, I Spy.
The Rock. Yeah, I don't even remember I Spy.
I don't either, but I do.
I know I've seen it.
Right. How to Train Your Dragon, Bicentennial Man.
How to Train Your Dragon.
Collateral, Coyote Ugly.
Love me some Coyote Ugly, but it's Collateral.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Birdman, Big.
Birdman.
That's hard for me, but I think it is Birdman. But Big has so much nostalgia built up for me.
Big's a wonderful movie, but Birdman is an artistic achievement.
Yeah. The Founder, Little Shop of Horrors.
Little Shop of Horrors, because I found the Founder was such a disappointment for me.
Yeah. Oh, this is tough for me. Probably easy for you. The Town or The Deer Hunter?
The Town.
I'm going to have to flip. That. I mean, you're talking about one of the best experiences of my life. It's hard to go against The Deer Hunter. The Town wins, though. Lawless, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Scott Pilgrim.
Didn't we already do Weird Science Impact Draft?
Yeah.
It's up again.
That's weird.
I'm Not There, Grease.
I'm Not There. That movie is awesome.
Yeah. Broken Arrow or Sphere?
Broken Arrow.
That's when I knew the John Travolta comeback wasn't going to last.
Yeah.
All right, tell me what happens at the end of Vanilla.
All right, so the big secret that the female character is carrying throughout the movie is that she sorry, excuse me 1 second. She's been making money on the side. She wants to be a stand-up comedian. That's her dream, and she's working towards that while also working at her uncle's pizza shop. But then she has a secret sideline as a cam girl.
I knew it. I was going to guess that based on the poster. That was my guess at how this movie ended, or what the thing was.
Yeah. So they come back from the road trip. All this stuff has happened. They had a romance. They had sex. Things progressed to where he said something really stupid. His ex-girlfriend is kind of is involved in this in a way, and she comes to the opinion that he's not mature enough to really be in a relationship with her and accept who she is and the things that she kind of enjoys doing. And so she breaks up with him. He goes home and
he becomes a cam guy.
Huh?
He becomes a cam guy, or he watches her.
He goes to watch her cam. And now, so the thing about it is that he doesn't know what's going to happen on the cam. And it turns out that what she's doing on cam on this particular evening is actually she's just doing her stand-up, which is apparently something that she's done on there before, but she's decided tonight she's going to do that and try out some new material. and he doesn't know she's going to do that. So there's nothing like him going there and having this inspirational moment where he's kind of getting to see her, flower in front of him as a performer, as this comedian, achieving sort of a dream of getting people to laugh at things that she does, which is supposed to be the kind of inspirational side of this, is that he's supporting her, from afar. But the movie, from a visual standpoint, obviously, again, he doesn't know that that's what she's going to be doing. He's going there thinking that she's going to be, doing a regular cam girl stuff. And to the point where the camera actually lingers for a moment, not unlike the corkscrew, it lingers on a box of Kleenex just before he makes the decision to go and find her cam. Obviously, the Kleenex isn't a strong indication of masturbation. So we're talking about a guy who's just been rejected by a girl, and now he's going to go watch at her on cam and masturbate to it. And it feels cheap and gross, and like, dude, like you're a real creep. Like you actually care about this person, you love her, but now you're just going to treat it like it's just this masturbatory fantasy. That's just to me. I don't like the connotation, and given that this is a romantic comedy, that it can't handle the weight of that sort of, right. I don't know, Todd Solondz like twist.
It's funny that's kind of what I thought this movie was going to. I mean, I didn't know the stand-up part. I didn't guess that, but I figured he was going to go watch her cam. Just because of the stupid poster.
I mean, just imagine like a typical, or not typical, but just like a romantic comedy, and then at the end, Richard Gere jerks off to Julia Roberts. Like,
right. And yeah, there has to be something deep there if you're going to go that direction, and it sounds like this is more lighthearted and doesn't have the ability to, like you said, handle that depth.
It doesn't, yeah.
Do they get back together in the end?
No. Good. It ends with him anonymously giving her a couple of bucks on the cam to support her doing her comedy.
And then half an hour later, he's like, "Show me your tits."
That's the implication from the use of the Kleenex.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
Don't establish the Kleenex is what I'm saying.
I was going to make the title, I never used Kleenex, but don't establish the Kleenex is about.
I've been doing a lot of stuff on visuals. Like I just did the corkscrew one, and I did another one. Oh gosh, well I was thinking about doing that one. I mean, the Kleenex box. I also did another one that I'm posting today. That'll be on the Facebook page. That is about the way dialogue can break the fourth wall. Yeah. And it's about Venom. What do you remember about Venom?
I didn't watch it. That's what I remember about it.
The thing that the lasting legacy of Venom, despite being very successful and not well loved, but successful enough that they're making a sequel, is a scene at the end in a convenience store where Venom emerges and confronts a robber and says he's going to rip off his arms, rip off his legs, bite off his face, and just leave him like this armless, legless, faceless thing rolling down the street like a turd in the wind. And that line, "a turd in the wind," has become the most memorable thing about Venom. And that piece of dialogue breaks the fourth wall. It knocks you out of the movie. You hear that, it strikes the ear in such a fashion that is so wrong and gross and out of place. Not to mention that from a logical standpoint, turds have enough weight that they don't necessarily blow in the wind. You hear it the first time when you're watching the movie, and it just kind of like you get knocked back, you cringe, and whatever the spell, the magic of being in a movie. Not that Venom had much of a spell going anyway, but just that way of being inside of a film and having it, that film experience when you're reminded of something like that in that strong sort of way, it makes you kind of look around like, oh, I'm in public, I'm in a theater, I'm not inside this story. And that dialogue breaking the fourth wall is the topic.
That's fun. Then you just start analyzing the logic of what they say.
I mean, if you're going to say something, it should make sense. You know, if it's going to be, especially if you're going to make it the headline of the marketing campaign, which they did, like a turd in the wind, is the center point of the first marketing campaign for the movie and the star's marketing campaign of the movie. They were very proud of that. And I'm fascinated by the idea, like, what were they thinking when they wrote that? Who wrote that? Then what was it like to have to say it and direct that line? And nobody thought to themselves, you know, this is really gross and stupid.
Sadly, it sounds like they're pretty proud of the line.
They really were.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, I'll be posting that article on our Facebook page today for everybody to read. I also I rewatched Zombieland Double Tap and hated that ever more again. So I've got a new take on that going up, and yeah, that's I wrote and published 3 things yesterday, and I've got a review of Next Friday going up today. That's part of a book I'm writing, and I also began writing something on Videodrome. I'm not sure if I'll finish it or not because I feel so intimidated by all of the ideas in Videodrome that I've not really been able to bring it all together.
That's what that movie does.
Yes.
All right, cool. I look forward to seeing all that.
Cool.
All right, anything else before I let you go?
No, that's all I got.
All right. Talk to you later.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Bye.